everyone, I'm Sister Vassa, and as many of you will know, I recently visited Kiev in Ukraine. And in this video, I wanted to share with you some of my experiences of that brief visit to Kiev, and especially the interview I was able to film with Viktor Yelensky, who is a state official of the Ukrainian government, and his official title is that he's the head of the State Service of Ukraine for Ethnopolitics and Freedom of Conscience. He's a professor and expert in religious studies and specifically problems of religious freedom and national identity. Since 2001, he has been the president of the Ukrainian Association of Religious Freedom, and he has been a member in the past of the Ukrainian parliament in its 8th convocation. The reason I wanted to interview Viktor Yevgenyevich is because he is a proponent of the Ukrainian Law 3894 in its 9th version, enacted by the Ukrainian Parliament, or Rada, in August of 2024. And this law, that is for the protection of constitutional order in the sphere of activity of religious organizations, is known as the law that prohibits the influence of and ties to the Moscow Patriarchate in Ukraine. Now, this law has been controversial, especially in the West, even though it's supported by 80% of the Ukrainian population in Ukraine. But in Western social media and also church circles, it is often perceived as the persecution from the side of the Ukrainian authorities of Orthodox Christians in Ukraine. It's also criticized, and I want to be exact about this, it's criticized and raises concerns because the critics allege that it is all about the politicization of religion, and it impacts, so critics say, the intercommunal tensions and also incites violence amongst Ukrainian Orthodox Christians. The critics are also concerned about this law that it does not comply, as they see it, with international law regarding freedom of conscience. Critics also say that it is discriminatory against the Ukrainian Orthodox Church under the jurisdiction of Metropolitan Onufry, and it discriminates against especially this jurisdiction that has historical and church canonical ties to the Moscow Patriarchate, and critics also say that it is not acceptable in a democratic society. Those defending the law 3894, on the other hand, respond to these accusations by pointing out that what is inciting violence against the Ukrainian people in Ukraine today is first and foremost the war being waged against the very existence of Ukraine by the Russian Federation, with the vocal support of the Moscow Patriarch Kirill, and also with the support of his teaching on the war as a holy war, or Svященная война. This is an expression or a term that is explicitly used in the decree or nakaz of the organization presided over by Patriarch Kirill called the All-World Russian People's Council. And in the decree or statement or manifesto, call it what you will, of this council, the war against Ukraine is called a holy war, and it is fully supported, and it is stated that Ukraine must come under the influence of the Russian Federation, and so on. You can look that up. The Russian world ideology in its many facets is justifying the aggression against Ukraine. There are, as you might know, a lot of civilians being killed in Ukraine via the Russian drones and missiles. While I was in Kiev, by the way, there were people killed not far away from where I was staying. was also woken up in the middle of the night because the sirens went off. I heard 2 explosions outside our building. I was sheltering in an inner corridor during this time because my host woke me up and we had to go into a room, where there are no windows. And I think I have a picture here for you of the 2 of us sheltering in the corridor for several hours. I also learned that there were several people killed in that specific attack that night, and 2 children were amongst those that were victims of that attack. Viktor Yevgenyevich will speak a little bit more in the interview about the consequences of Russian aggression. And I was also seeing funerals in the city of Kiev for fallen soldiers. I saw more than one funeral going on in my brief visit. One of the places I visited was just one of the many cemeteries where fallen Ukrainian soldiers are buried. And here is a video clip with the freshly dug graves for Ukrainian soldiers at a cemetery on the outskirts of Kiev. This is one of many. And these graves that you can see here as we drove in our car past this specific spot in a cemetery, all of these graves have been freshly dug in the past 3 years. I happened to be there on Mother's Day, and there were women, also men, of course, but there were those grieving at these graves, but especially mothers. I also saw young women, perhaps the wives or the girlfriends or sisters of fallen Ukrainian soldiers. And I was reminded actually many times, as I was also meeting with certain church people from more than one church jurisdiction, that the losses and the sacrifices being made are shared by people of different faiths and of different jurisdictions, even while life goes on and people are affirming life. I saw also more than one wedding being celebrated in different churches while I was there. I heard several people who told me, like my Uber driver on one occasion was a young woman who drove me to the botanical garden in Kiev because I was invited for a little tour there by two people who follow my work online. Anyway, she ended up sharing with me when I asked her how she was faring during the war, because sometimes you strike up a conversation with your Uber driver. And she said, I see things positively and I am living my life. I have a small daughter, she told me. And then she ended up telling me that she actually lost her beloved. He had fallen in battle. He died in the early months of the war. And she decided, she said, that if I don't live my life and I decide just to whine, she said, nitsio she used, if I take the path of whining, then nobody else will live my life for me and it will be wasted. I was very moved by this testimony and also the way that I observed the city of Kiev being a city that's vibrant. It has beautiful and clean streets. I saw reconstruction going on in places that had been bombed in Kiev, and I was told that things are quite quickly restored, or people are working on restoring the damaged property. It's not always possible to restore everything or quickly, but I saw several sites where there was reconstruction going on. I saw a McDonald's that I was told has already been reconstructed more than once because it's been bombed more than once and destroyed more than once. So there was this life affirmation that I found very inspiring, and it made me think about the fact that sometimes under far less dramatic circumstances in my neck of the woods, we might become discouraged or depressed or suffer from anxiety, whereas I saw people dealing with, the situation of a war and affirming life. And yes, I also witnessed the church divisions, which are indeed a wound on the body of Christ. The church divisions between the various jurisdictions, also within one and the same Orthodox Church in Ukraine. Nonetheless, the people that I saw that are members of their church jurisdiction work and also affirm life and are involved in the education and theological education and also missionary work of their church jurisdiction. And I found this to be a powerful testimony, despite the divisions, which are also a sign of life, if you think about it. Part of our lives are also the divisions, and there was a certain message that I saw in all of this, that our risen Lord does appear to his disciples with the wounds still, in his hands, and he has the wounds in his feet, and there's also the wound in his side from what he experienced at his crucifixion and in his death on the cross for our sake. So the wounded yet risen Lord is in our midst, and it seemed to me like the wounded yet risen body of Christ is something that we are witnessing in the very vibrant yet divided church life also in Ukraine. And I found this to be a consolation and an inspiration for me. So these are some impressions I wanted to share with you before moving on to our interview with Viktor Yelensky. And I realized as I was interviewing him that he is also one of those that is sharing the experience of the aggression against his friends, his neighborhood, his family, and that all of those, also those on opposite sides of the church division in the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, or on different sides of it, they are actually facing a common enemy. And this is an objective reality of the drones and missiles that are launched their way practically every day. So this is something to keep in mind. And I tried myself to exercise a bit of care of not being quick to judge how the Ukrainians in their domestic policies are trying to deal with something that is a real threat. There is a real and present danger in the connections with the Moscow Patriarchate because, my friends, because the Moscow Patriarchate today does profess loud and clear that this is a holy war that is being waged against Ukraine. I didn't make that up. The Ukrainians didn't make that up. It's in black and white in the official proclamation of an organization presided over by Patriarch Kirill, sadly, that is called the All-World Council of the Russian People. It is not something that is taken lightly by a country at war. So those who defend the law 3894 that aims to ward off or protect the Ukrainian people against the influences coming from that church body that professes this ideology, you could take pause and see that the instinct to be protected from that kind of ideology when you're fighting a defensive war is an understandable one in any event, whichever side of this issue you happen to be on. So that's it for this background information. Please keep in mind as you watch this interview that I did with Viktor Yelensky last week, the second week of May 2025, at his office in Kiev, that this is an emotional and difficult topic for everybody in Kiev, also for him, also for me as an observer that's from the outside, but nonetheless from the inside of the Orthodox Church. And I hope that you will learn something from it, as did I. I'm beginning with this question. Has Law 3894 sanctioned violence against the faithful of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, of the Moscow Patriarchate? And has the law and the government that supports it sanctioned and brought about governmental seizures or takeovers of the properties and places of worship of this church jurisdiction?
Sister Vassa, in my perception, the majority of those who criticize this law did not read it, just did not read it. What is this law about? The title of law on protection of constitutional order in the sphere of activity of religious organization. This law prohibits the activity of Russian Orthodox Church and has quotation from resolution of Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe, prohibition of Russian Orthodox Church as ideological continuation of Putin's regime, which is guilty for crime against humanity. This law does not prohibit the activity of Ukrainian Orthodox Church, of Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, but what this law demands. Ukrainian government doesn't want Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate to betray Orthodoxy, not to change liturgical calendar, not to change Slavonic Church Slavonic language to Ukrainian one, not to be the part of another church, just to withdraw itself from the Russian Orthodox Church, which is not a companion of Russian regime, but participate in the war against Ukraine. Patriarch Kirill not only bless this war, but also bless the weapon of mass destruction. Patriarch Kirill and his associates say openly, our goal to destroy Ukrainian statehood, to destroy Ukrainian culture, to destroy Ukrainian identity, and as you may mention, Patriarch Kirill delivered his condolences when, for example, the grandmother of a member of Russian Gosduma passed away. But never, ever, he raised his concern about 618 Ukrainian kids killed by Russians during this
618 children have been killed.
Plus today, this night, also 2 kids in Kiev and 2 kids in Sumy. 622 kids.
Right.
Never. And his TV channel openly said that, you know, our dear soldiers and our dear Russian compatriots, you are afraid to kill people in Ukraine. Don't be afraid. There are not human beings in Ukraine. There are just neo-Nazis. So kill it. It's very close to Hebel's maxima. I liberate you from your conscience, something like this. So that is why we kindly ask the leadership of Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate to withdraw itself from Russian Orthodox Church, from Holy Synod of Russian Orthodox Church, now from so-called interconciliar presence of Russian Orthodox Church, and from Synodal Commission of Russian Orthodox Church. This is, in my opinion, it's absolutely legitimate asking. And law, you mentioned, openly says that if Ukrainian Orthodox Church withdraw itself from Russian Orthodox Church, this law not applicable for Ukrainian Orthodox Church. That's it.
Right. So
that's
if
it.
there
And
is
excuse me, Cecily. And in 2022, 2024, many clerics of Ukrainian Orthodox Church asked primate of this church to withdraw Ukrainian Orthodox Church from Russian Orthodox Church, to convene the council and to break the ties with Moscow Patriarchate, because Moscow Patriarchate is guilty for death of their parishioners, for death of their flock. And in 2023, 400 clerics addressed to primate of Ukrainian Orthodox Church and asked him to convene the council and to break ties, completely break ties with Moscow Patriarchate.
And what did he do?
As far as I know, his beatitude did not receive the delegation of this credit.
He did not receive the dedication.
Right.
So, how is the withdrawal from the Moscow Patriarchate supposed to look? So they say, that the jurisdiction of Metropolitan Onufri, that's his beatitude, if somebody doesn't know who is being talked about, it is claimed that they have cut ties. They say that we have cut ties. We don't commemorate Patriarch Kirill at the church services, right? And we have no more ties with them. Why is this not convincing for the Ukrainian government? Why do you think that they still have ties?
Metropolitan Onufri did a bold step in 2022, but it's not enough because Ukrainian Orthodox Church is still a part of Russian Orthodox Church. And when Ukrainian Parliament passed this law, Ukrainian Parliament stressed that this law perceived legitimate goal to put the end of influence of Russian Orthodox Church, which is not only hostile to Ukraine, but openly said we should destroy Ukraine.
Right.
We
know
this
is a fact, yes.
That is why this law perceived legitimate goal. Secondly, this law is absolutely compatible with a democratic society procedure, because the final word is word of court, not of my service or parliament or government, just to court.
The courts decide in each case, yes?
Every case. This is second. Third, this law does not put burden on the conscience of ordinary faithful, because subordination to Moscow Patriarchate is not a part of Orthodox teaching. That is why I do believe that this law is absolutely compatible with democratic norms and with international law in the sphere of freedom of conscience.
So I would like to ask very concretely, when we see images and videos sometimes, there have been incidents of fights over a church. Are you saying that this is the initiative of certain people and the feelings that are around church jurisdiction in certain cases? This comes from certain people and not from the government? I would like a concrete answer to this.
Concrete answer. There were several incidents when people said we couldn't be under the subordination of Moscow Patriarchate.
Right.
And we would like to be the part of Orthodox Church of Ukraine. And another part, smallest part of this church, wouldn't like to betray their priest and try to defend their cathedral. But there were, in 2024, there were no more than 6 incidents.
Right. So you're saying the government is not sanctioning violence, or the law is not sanctioning any violence or police power to inflict violence or a violent takeover of a church property or a place of worship?
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to ask. Now, another concrete question about a much publicized issue. The monks of Kiev's Lavra, or Kievo-Pечерskaya Lavra, have they been expelled forcibly or not forcibly from their monastery? And if so, has the government forcibly expelled them, or perhaps are they still there? Could you update us, and what's happened to them?
Very short answer. Monks of Kiev Monastery still in monastery.
They're still there?
Still there. In upper part of this monastery, there are monks of Orthodox Church of Ukraine. In another part of this monastery, the monks of Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate.
What would you say to those who are concerned that either President Zelensky or his administration are hostile against the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, or even to Orthodox Christianity, or even Christianity in general? One hears this in various voices. Say in the United States, I've heard this, that they say that the Zelensky government is hostile to Christianity.
This is absurdity.
Absurdity?
Absolutely absurdity. There are 35,000 religious congregations in Ukraine, and mostly Christian congregations. And Americans, Western Europeans who visited Ukraine said that Ukraine is still a beacon of religious freedom in Eastern Europe. And many people from Central Asia, from Belarus, and even from Russia obtained shelter, persecuted in these areas for their religious convictions. For example, like Jehovah's Witnesses. They obtained shelter in Ukraine. Ukraine is Bible Belt of Eastern Europe, or probably for Europe the largest denomination of Baptists, of Pentecostals, of Adventists, of Seventh-day, great Orthodox community, one of the largest Eastern Catholic Church in Ukraine. So it's absolutely absurd that President Zelensky or government of Ukraine is hostile to religious freedom and
I
to
think you mentioned
Christianity.
to me that within the government of Ukraine, there has been in past years and now as well, different important government positions filled by people of different faiths.
Absolutely.
Right? Could you tell us a little bit about this?
As I mentioned, within 2014-2019, the head of Ukrainian state was Eastern Orthodox. The head of Ukrainian parliament was Catholic. Secretary of Defense and Security of Ukraine was evangelical but Baptist. Now the Minister of Defense, the very important position in country at war, is Muslim.
He's Muslim?
Yeah, he's Crimean Tatar.
What is his name?
Rustem Umerov.
Mm-hmm.
He's Crimean Tatar.
Crimean Tatar, yes.
Crimean Tatar. So, and many people on top position in Ukrainian government are Christians of different faith.
And of course, President Zelensky.
President Zelensky is ethnic Jew. Ukraine has very diverse religious landscape.
So, would you say that we see evidence actually of Ukraine being committed to this tradition of having religious diversity and tolerance and freedom? Is this true, or has this changed because of the war? Has Ukraine become less committed to democracy and democratic values and has more value for, I don't know, a strong government arm that keeps everybody in line? Is there a change in there? I'm making it clear. Is there a change in Ukraine's commitment to democratic values?
During the war, according to special law, some liberties are narrowed, but not freedom of conscience. The freedom of conscience, the freedom of religion is still full in its exercise. So, and what is very important, Russian invaders hoped that Ukraine would be divided along the ethnic and religious lines. But it's not the case, and Ukrainian society consolidated. And in Ukrainian military, we can see people of different ethnic background: Hungarians, Romanians, Jews, Roma people, and so on and so forth. And Ukrainian Christians sent their chaplains to battle line, and some of them fought the battle lines, and some of them showed the very heroic stance and very heroic behavior on the battlefield. And Ukrainian military forces have not only Orthodox and or Catholic chaplains, but also the evangelicals, Muslim, and Jew.
I see. Do you know about incidents on the occupied territories, occupied by the Russian military, of religious discrimination or persecution of Orthodox Christians, Protestants, Protestant pastors, people of other faiths? Is there religious persecution there?
Russian invaders are natural, let's say, enemies of religious freedom.
Natural enemies?
Natural enemies.
Why do you think that?
Russian invaders killed 67 priests, pastors, and
67
priests and nuns, pastors, right?
Where?
In occupied territories and in
the
battle
various
lines.
regions.
Yeah.
Yes.
For example, some of priests killed by Russians were in investment. For example, priest Father Kazachina was killed on the checkpoint in Kiev region in March 2022. He was with cross and with vestment. Father Dudarenko was killed.
Father who?
Dudarenko. Yeah.
People can fact check these things if
Father Polonchak, priest, was murdered in February 2024 on occupied town of Kalanchak in the south of Ukraine, and many others were killed by Russians.
Why would the Russian occupying forces kill religious, pastors or priests? I have also read that there are many imprisoned in Russian prisons. Priests also.
I met
Why would they?
I met two priests of Greek Catholic Church, Father Levitsky and Father Gileta, who were imprisoned about 2 years.
For 2 years they were imprisoned.
Yeah, and liberated only in June last year.
I think this was an exchange, of prison exchange.
During the prison exchange, yes.
So why were they imprisoned and where?
In city of Gorlovka in Berdyansk, on the southeast of Ukraine, just because they were priests of Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church.
So the Greek Catholic Church, for anybody who doesn't know, is in communion with the Church of Rome, the Roman Catholic Church, but they celebrate according to the Byzantine rite.
Even Ukrainian priests of Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate, who rejected to be subordinated directly to Moscow, were imprisoned.
So also Orthodox priests, right, that did not want to be subordinated, as the parishes are being subordinated directly to the Moscow Patriarchate in the occupied territories, everybody, just so that you're following this. Okay, so they were also imprisoned, the Orthodox
Yeah, for
priests?
example, Father Maximov in Zaporizhia region was sentenced for 40 years. 14
14 years
14
sentenced by a Russian court, an occupying...
in occupied territories.
Yeah.
as a Ukrainian spy.
Oh, he was accused of espionage.
Yeah.
Okay. And is he still in prison?
Yes.
This is
Yes, he is.
still in prison.
Yes, he is. And many Ukrainian pastors, priests, are still in prison in occupied territory or in Russia, and more than 100 Crimean Muslim also now in prison.
Crimean Tatars, maybe?
Mostly Crimean Tatars. They are
that are
Muslims.
More than 100 are in Russian prisons.
Right.
So a lot of this is something I didn't know, and I'm surprised really that we don't hear anywhere near as much about the persecution by Russian military forces of religious people for their affiliation with certain church jurisdictions or faiths, right, on the occupied territories, as much as we hear about the alleged persecution of Orthodox Christians by the Zelensky administration. In certain information bubbles, we really hear only about some kind of offenses against religious freedom of Zelensky government. And I find it helpful to receive this additional information to see what also Ukraine is up against and what people fear also what would come to the rest of Ukraine if it would happen that these Russian military forces would take over more of Ukraine, or God forbid, all of Ukraine. I don't think that's possible because of the very staunch resistance that the Ukrainian military is holding them back with. Anyway, so could you please touch upon the damage that has been done to religious freedoms and the welfare, the well-being of churches in Ukraine as a result of the Russian military aggression against Ukraine?
Russian invaders damaged or destroyed, or completely even destroyed, more than 630 cathedral, prayer buildings, and place of worship.
I didn't know that. 600 and how many?
630. 630. And some of this cathedral intentionally.
Intentionally targeting churches.
Right. And when Patriarch Kirill speaks about his attitude to Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate, and when he forced priests and bishops write his name as Lord and Father,
and to commemorate his name as Lord and Father.
Lord and Father.
Right, Господин и Отец.
Господин, he might have in mind that Russians, blessed by him, killed 14 priests of Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate.
14 that belong to that jurisdiction, right?
Right. And no condolences to Metropolitan Onufry he delivered.
He didn't send condolences to Metropolitan Onufry for the killed priests?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And absolutely no single word about more than 180 cathedrals of Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate destroyed by Russians during this war.
Just cathedrals.
Right.
Just cathedrals.
And not any single word about the famous Preobrazhensky Cathedral in Odessa.
Right.
About cathedral in Sumy, about cathedral in Zaporizhia, and
these were bombed. We know that they were bombed by the Russians?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
rocketed.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask you as my final question, as we draw to a close, this very interesting for me interview. I would like to ask you as someone who's part of Ukrainian society and also political life, how has Christian faith, according just to your observations in life in Ukraine, How has Christian faith played a positive role in the society, in your surroundings, at this very difficult time of war? You know, when people just are traumatized, people, I imagine, I've been here just for a couple of days, and I've also been in a bomb shelter already at night, this past night. So how is Christian faith, can I ask you a personal question? Are you a Christian?
Right.
You are a Christian?
Yes.
So how is the faith playing a positive role at this difficult time? In just answer the way you've observed it.
I, as a scholar, religious studies, I know that during the war, religious feelings are probably more sensitive, let's say. And during the war, many.
What do you mean by sensitive?
I mean, they more sharp or acute.
Acute, sharp, I get it.
And during the war, many people address their drama and their life stories to priests and to their religionists. So I witnessed how people try to find comfort and probably support from church and from churches in plural.
From different churches,
From
right?
different, and how not every Sunday, but in ordinary days, people gather it in prayer houses, go to places of worship, and how many probably you visited Bucha, how many people gathered on this cathedral in Bucha, where
people come to this cathedral, like, do you think it's like a pilgrimage site?
It's pilgrimage site, and this is a site of memory of 2-month occupation, of very tragic occupation of Russians. And probably some people ask themselves, where is God?
Where is God?
In this time of war, and this is a question also from Second World War, where was God in Oswiecim?
Have you asked yourself this question?
I do believe that all people asked this question, and there are some, how to say, eternal question for Christians.
Some eternal question.
Eternal, right? Excuse me.
Yeah. I think that it's been difficult for people to struggle with some triumph of injustice. Right. It's like, isn't there justice? Was there justice after World War II? I mean, how many people were brought to justice? I mean, Hitler killed himself, but he didn't die a miserable death in a gas chamber, right?
Right.
And how many Nazis were actually tried at Nuremberg? Very small percent, right? And I struggled, I'm sorry, I'm inserting myself into this, my friends out there, but this struggle to look at what's happening and think, this blood is crying out to God, right?
Right.
And where is the justice, and is there going to be victory? And if there isn't, for the good guys. So I have been reflecting on it and thinking that Jesus Christ himself was someone who was subjected to the worst injustice, and he died. And then he rose again, but he didn't rise again to come and punish in ways that we can see or bring to justice the Roman soldiers, the Pharisees and scribes that were yelling, "Crucify him," that whole big crowd. So I was thinking that the justice of God that was triumphing in a way that people didn't expect. Even though the apostles, right before Christ's ascension, they're saying, aren't you going to, or when are you going to restore the kingdom to Israel? They say it right before he ascends. So these
sometimes,
thoughts...
sometimes people need triumph of justice immediately.
Yes.
Just there in this time, and it's not easy to survive.
No. And I'm thinking that our faith does have a message, and there is justice. There is justice, but when the disciples asked Jesus, this is just the way I process this, they asked him, is it now that you're going to restore the kingdom to Israel? He says, it is not for you to know the times and seasons that the Father has put in his power, exousia, in his own power. So there is power of God. It's not always expressed in the time and the pace that we know. And I'm just saying this for anybody interested or struggling with this issue of injustice triumphing. There is justice, but the times and the seasons, and that we're given certain power, we can speak the truth, we can contribute also to the fight that Ukraine is putting up against this aggression that is coming over it. And it is fighting valiantly. Nonetheless, the extent to which we are not successful is also something to keep in mind, that there always is God's justice, but we don't always see it playing out in the times that we might expect. Viktor Yevgenyevich, could you complete our conversation with things that you still would like to say that I haven't let you say to our viewers? Could you direct?
Probably I would like to address to your viewers very easy thought. In my understanding, the situation around this war is very simple. This is aggressor, and this is a victim of aggression. That is why Ukrainians are, let's say, not happy when some religious leaders say about complication of this war, about trying to put on the same level the aggressor and victim of aggression, when they try to support the presence of Russian Orthodox Church in the World Council of Churches. So it's offensive for Ukrainian Christians. That is why I would like to say to you viewers that, in my opinion, leader or primate of Russian Orthodox Church is not a religious leader as I can perceive this. And Patriarch Kirill exchanged his social capital for state support. For example, he didn't rely on a spiritual authority when he need to discipline the rebelled monastery in Ural. He just sent riot police to this place.
Right.
So we can divide. We need to divide spiritual leaders during this war and those who pretend to be religious leaders and support aggression.
Right. So you don't see him as a spiritual or religious authority, but a political one.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much, Viktor Yevgenyevich. You have been very generous with your time and your thoughts, and I want to just thank you for being you, and also express my compassion with you and the Ukrainian people for whatever it's worth. Thank you very much. Everybody, please click on the like button, share this video if you could, leave your comments, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава!